Welcome to the Upshift podcast, where changemakers meet and commune and find out how each other is doing their part in changing the world. And today's guest is Denise Stegall, and she wrote the book, Healthy Living, Happy Life. And she's here today to talk about how to have a happy life through healthy living. And we are focusing, I believe, Denise, on that whole menopausal bell curve of listeners. Is that correct?
Yes.
Welcome.
And of course, menopause is a bit of a misnomer. We think it's like this one thing that kind of happens quickly and it's over. But menopause actually starts so much earlier than we think. At age 35, progesterone starts to decline. 35, you don't think of that as midlife and menopause, but it is perimenopause. So it's kind of this continuum. And so by the time people start actually experiencing real symptoms, they could be only 37, that was me, in their early 40s going, what the heck is going on here?
Right.
And one of the challenges that we have in this midlife perimenopause area is our doctors don't necessarily recognize it when we're that young.
Yeah.
So it's really difficult. So if you're having mood swings or you're not sleeping and you go to the doctor, they have a pill for that, right? But it's not actually addressing the challenge that you're having, which is perimenopause. It's those hormonal changes that are causing the mood challenges and the sleepless nights. Progesterone actually is the culprit when it comes to struggling with sleep in the early phases of perimenopause.
Right. Denise, tell us a little bit about what you do. We've launched into how you can help, but what do you do?
I work with women in midlife, and that could be a woman who's 40, 50, really through 65. And I help them to understand what is going on in their body so they can make informed decisions about what they want to do and how they want to manage menopause. But also in this time of midlife, women start to worry about who they are, what they're doing, what their purpose is. So there are two things that are happening at the same time. So I help women to understand both of those pieces and really dive deeper into who they are, what they want, and how they want to live the rest of their life. Because menopause, after your 1 year anniversary of not having a period, that is your menopause day. Menopause is one day. After that, you're perimenopausal. So most of us are going to live another 30 or 35 years post-menopausal. So that's a long time to kind of go, I don't know what I want to do.
Right.
So if we can figure it out when we're younger, I'm 54, so most of my clients are around 50. If they can figure it out then, or at least have an idea what that next chapter is going to look like, it's so much more relaxing. They're so much more at peace with who they are, with their body.
Right.
Ever-changing body.
Yeah. It sounds like you have a holistic approach, body, mind, and emotional effects of perimenopause, or just basically midlife. And what I don't understand is why doctors nowadays, especially, why they don't take blood tests of any woman who's complaining of any of these type of symptoms, which I've seen in even late 20s, meaning their hormones are off. They may not be perimenopausal, but their hormones are off. I do not understand why the things that run our lives are not monitored. I mean, do you find that frustrating?
It is probably the biggest struggle that we have.
Yes.
And I've spoken to several doctors about this, OBGYNs and other physicians, who basically, when it comes to hormones, their answer is, well, your hormones fluctuate. So if we take a blood test, it may not be accurate. And I kind of do the head slap thinking, well, if we don't know where our hormone levels are, how do we know if we're perimenopausal?
Off at all.
Right. So what I've been very fortunate in my travels, in my experience through menopause, is I did find a doctor and a group who would do hormone testing. And I was shocked when I got the results of my test.
Mm-hmm.
My test basically put all of my sex hormones, or pregnancy hormones, as we like to think of them, progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone. They were literally in the tank.
Yeah,
So
all of
no
them.
one, all of them. No wonder why I felt horrible and I was cranky. And, I kind of felt like I was this crazed woman who was not me.
Right.
But when I looked in the mirror, it was me, but I didn't feel like me. Well, that helped me understand what was going on in my body, which was affecting me physically, mentally, and emotionally.
Yeah. So the physical part, let's talk. We're going to get to all of them, but the physical part, hormones. How do you suggest people, women, balance them? There's many different points of view on this. I want your point of view on how to get them back up to where they're balanced, and whatever that looks different for each woman. And also, I do know this because I've had wonderful people in my life that helped me through menopause. I have blood tests, and still to this day, every 6 months, because then you can see the trends of where everything is going and adjust things. And then
Absolutely.
I asked my doctor, I said, give me the symptoms for me to look for if I have too much estrogen, too much progesterone, too little this, too much that. What happens? Like too much estrogen. Yours may be in the tank, but too much means, we get bloated, we get moody, we get foggy brains, we get big breasts, we get all those things, or tender ones. We get all those things. So being informed. So I want to know, I asked you one question, and that is, how do you suggest we balance our hormones? And then how do we as women get informed? Because we can go to our doctor and say, you need to take a blood test.
Exactly. So the first thing that I always say to women or with my clients is, let's look at your diet first. Because diet, especially at this time of life, your diet really can affect your hormones. It also affects the way we feel just depending on the food. So sometimes if we're eating not as healthfully, not the foods that our body really wants, more of the SAD diet, standard American diet, with lots of preservatives and, you know,
Some fructose,
things,
not
yeah, all the
sucrose.
things that we know our body rejects. If we're eating those, that actually makes us feel bad. It makes us bloated. It makes, we have tummy troubles, whether it's you can't go to the bathroom or you can go to the bathroom. And these are symptoms, these symptoms pop up with menopause too. So is it menopause or is it the diet? So I like to look at diet first. And then once we kind of dial that in, I really do encourage people to get a test. Whether it's you going to your OBGYN, or if you're lucky, your family medicine doctor will be supportive of this. Get a blood test. If you are getting pushback from your doctor, there is something called the Dutch test. And I can't remember what Dutch stands for right now, but it tests all of your hormones. It will also test thyroid. It will test adrenals. So all of the things that can get blown out when our hormones are kind of going crazy. You used a phrase a second ago, can we get our hormones in balance? They're never exactly in balance,
Yeah.
but the goal is to get them to be less fluctuating.
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So once you have that information, I mean, those tests are information. Even if they're not perfect, I'll give them that. They may not be perfect, but they're better than nothing. It gives you some information.
Right. You got to know where you are to know where you want to go or need to go in anything.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, well, some of the foods that I know, like phytoestrogens, if you're low on estrogen, soy products, some people have to stay away from because they've got cancer, breast cancer, estrogen eating cancer in their family or in their body. It's like, how else do I get estrogen in there without taking a pill? Because there are lots of ways of getting natural estrogen. Natural progesterone, I'm not as versed on, or testosterone. But do you use those kind of methods where you can get these hormones or phytohormones into our bodies through food?
Mostly with nutrition. And it's interesting when we talk about soy products and cancer.
Mm.
There's been a lot of conversation around that. The interesting piece, though, is the phytoestrogens in soy products is actually has a different mechanism than regular estrogen, like estradiol. So it's not the same thing. And so I think there's always this misnomer that, oh no, soy is bad because it causes breast cancer. It absolutely does not. As you mentioned, if somebody has a breast cancer, it's probably something you want to avoid. Just in case, who knows, right? We don't really have an answer there.
Right.
So truly it's food first, nutrition first, and then there are some great supplements on the market. I was really, really fortunate when I was about 38 years old was when I was really having the worst challenges. The mood, I mean, to the point where my husband looked at me and he's like, Denise, something is going on with you. We've got to figure it out. And he probably said, because you're driving me crazy. I'm sure I was.
Yeah. Thank God for our partners, or else we would never know, would we?
Right. Exactly. So this is really when I started between 37 and 38 was when I was doing a lot of this research on hormones and it was really my symptoms. I had no idea that I was going through perimenopause. And I found a company that I was shocked. I mean, online, there's a million products now, buy my stuff, this does everything. But this particular company, at the time they were called Women to Women. There was a survey on their website. I responded to the survey, filled it out, sent it off. It asked for my phone number. And I kid you not, 15 minutes after I submitted it, I got a phone call from a nurse from that company.
Oh,
Yes, it was phenomenal. I still to this day can't believe this actually happened.
sounds
But they
pretty
were
much.
still pretty new.
Yeah, it could have been a scam, right? So easily.
Right.
Yeah.
But this nurse, and I really wish I could remember her name. It breaks my heart that I don't. She asked me lots of questions that my doctors weren't asking,
Yeah.
questions that I didn't know to ask. And even though she had a product right then and there that she could have given me, she said, you know what, for the next 2 weeks, let's track symptoms. This is another thing I do with my clients now. Let's track your symptoms. What's going on? What are you eating? How are you feeling? Are you sleeping? Are you tired at 3:00 in the afternoon? Are you going to the bathroom normally? I mean, all of these things.
Right.
After tracking for 2 weeks, and she would check in, she called me and we went through some things and she was able to pinpoint, and this is the whole point of tracking, we were able to pinpoint things that were happening pretty regularly.
Mhm.
So I was like, whoa, at 3:00 in the afternoon, my energy was dipping. Why was my energy dipping? That actually turned out to be more of a nutrition thing than a hormone thing. But I didn't know that until I went through. So after this conversation, or towards the end of this conversation, she said to me, I do have a product. It's called Herbal Equilibrium.
Mhm.
She says, try it. I think this is going to be a game changer for you. I took it for 12 years.
Wow. I guess it was.
Life changing. And so there are some fabulous supplements out there. I always recommend really doing your research on supplements. And of course, that's part of what I do for my clients.
Right.
I know the products that I've used. I know the products that I've tested. And so I really feel comfortable and confident when a client says, what would you take? I can recommend a few things just because I know they worked for me.
Right. So that's the physical part of menopause. But you also mentioned the mental, emotional part of menopause, of the what's next. And I do call it the me now movement. That's something I coined a long time ago, because you do feel like, especially empty nesters, or when there's a change in your life, like a job ending or a death in the family, something like that, there's these markers that's kind of like, what now? So what do you use with your clients, or what do you suggest people do when they get to that? They wake up that morning and it's like, wow, it's midlife. And I don't know, I'm not really sure where I've been. I know where I've been, maybe as a mom or a partner or a CEO or whatever. It's like, what's next? So how do you help them figure that out?
We go through a few things. So in my book, Healthy Living, Happy Life, I talk about eat real food, make good decisions, and be accountable. And that's personal accountability. And so we go into this decision-making process and we go and discover what a woman is excited about. Remember when you were in your 20s, like there were things that you wanted to do and you had all these grandiose ideas. But then, life got in the way. You went to college and you had a family and all of those things. And maybe you even had this kick butt career. But now you're at a point where you're going, all right, I'm tired of this. There's got to be something more. And this
Fulfilling,
is
right?
where it's time to really kind of look inside and ask the questions. What do I like to do?
Mm-hmm.
What are my core values? Because sometimes those core values, they're always with you. But if you're working with a company, sometimes their core values become your core values because you're working with them.
Mm-hmm.
Or, the groups that you're in, their values kind of get placed on you. Not not maliciously, but that's just kind of what happens.
Mm-hmm.
But and what happens then is you end up saying yes to everything and anything and everything.
Okay. Yeah.
And that is one exhausting. But that's really where getting back to your core values and what you enjoy
Mm-hmm.
is essential to figure out what that next step is.
Right. So when I work with people and they ask me this a lot, it's like, how do I know? How do I know this is what I want to do? And I'm like, how does it make you feel? I always say, follow the joy, follow the delight, and allow it to be. I mean, I've got this is not a secret delight, but when I get things really organized and I can look out and there's nothing distracting in my mind about a shelf or a closet or whatever, some kind of chemical change happens inside of me. It's delightful for me and it makes me laugh. But it's one of those things. I wouldn't say it's a life skill, maybe it is, but it's about following the joy. It's about finding the things and allowing what brings you joy, allow it to bring you joy, no matter how silly it might be, right?
Absolutely. And that's the be accountable, the accountability piece. It's, you know, we know we have to be accountable to our spouses and our kids and that. Yeah, that's great. But we need to be accountable to ourselves, really, first and foremost, especially at this time.
Right.
And it's not being selfish,
No, no.
right?
Yeah.
It's about being true to yourself. And I love the fact that, you say, follow the joy. Absolutely.
Yeah.
If something doesn't make you happy, why do it?
Exactly. I had another guest the other day on, and she'd always put herself second. Like, I'll get to me after this. I'll get to me when I finish that. I'll get to me when this happens. And she never got to herself. And her body literally stopped her in her tracks and broke her down for a while until she got it that we have to put ourselves first. And you're right. You kind of say, especially at this age, I think at most ages we should, but when you get older, it's like, I hate to say it this way, but the end of the yellow brick road is a lot closer than it was at 20. And it's like, I might as well enjoy myself now that I know better. And if I don't put myself first, my body is going to do it for me.
Absolutely. And sadly, that's usually in a very negative way when your body
Oh,
basically
yeah, to
says,
get your
okay, I've had
attention, right?
enough.
Been trying to get your attention.
Right. And it could be illness. It could be adrenal fatigue.
Hmm.
It could be something like, hate this diagnosis, but fibromyalgia,
Yeah.
because there's something else going on there. And it's not always physical, but it manifests as a physical pain or physical discomfort.
Now you're talking my language, issues in your tissues, right? They're
Yep.
always there. And I do feel like that there where they are is where you can also address and release or heal. And
Yes.
So tell me the next steps for a woman. So we dealt with physical, we got the hormones where we know we need to monitor them and keep them in check with doing different things with food. Now we have movement. We're looking at what's next for that menopausal woman. What would you say?
Actually, you just said it, movement.
Yeah.
Movement and play and strength training.
Strength.
Strength,
Yes.
strength training, ladies, is essential. It
Yeah.
is going to, and it's not, I'm going to look like a big bodybuilder, but having muscle allows you to do the things that you love to do for as long as you live. So this is where we want to talk about health span, not necessarily lifespan, because we know there are a lot of people who live, into their 90s and, they're in a home and they can't walk and they have all these health problems, right? That's lifespan. We're thinking health span. And muscle is going to be your key factor. You're going to be able to walk up and down stairs. You're going to be able to pick things up. You're going to be able to play with your grandkids and, hey, maybe even your great grandkids, right?
Right.
So strength training is so important to us as midlife women and beyond, because as our estrogen is dropping, the estrogen basically helps your muscles to repair and strengthen and recover.
Mm-hmm.
And so what ends up happening is, we don't do it for a long time and our muscles are starting to get a little floppy and a little saggy.
Mm-hmm.
They're there. They're just under a little bit too much fat. We got to get rid of that and replace fat with lean muscle, because that lean muscle truly is that that longevity piece that I think everyone is searching for. Like, how do I live longer? If you're strong physically, more often than not, that's the strength, the physical strength helps with emotional strength, also helps with mental strength.
Yeah. Because if you feel good, then that's going to translate into thinking good, which will make you move well in the world. One of the
Absolutely.
things that I do want to bring up is strength training really helps with the bones, the osteoplasts, and the uptake of calcium, which we do lose because we need estrogen to uptake calcium. I have a personal story about that when I allowed my estrogen to stay low for whatever reasons. And I started getting what's called osteopenia, right? Bone loss. And that's very common in post or premenopausal, menopausal, and postmenopausal women is bone loss can happen uncontrollably. And so there are things that we can do. And one is heavy strength training, like really heavy weights. And for any woman out there, and I trained heavily all my life, you do not build muscle like a man. And actually, you really need to go as heavy as possible, I would say, for the bones as much as the muscle, which brings also all the blood around circulation in your body. What's another way? What's another
Okay, so I
thing?
have two things that I want to mention about
Okay, yeah.
that. Okay, so first, estrogen has over 400 tasks in the body.
Thanks.
Yeah. So for women, when our estrogen is declining, there are so many things that can go wrong
Yeah.
in our body. Thyroid issue. Oh, guess what? Thyroid and estrogen, that's connected too. So all of the things that women, as we get older, start to struggle with or suffer from, so much of it is related to estrogen decline. So there's
Right.
that first piece. The other piece I just wanted to mention about lifting heavy. If you haven't worked out with weights, it's really important to find a trainer, even just for a couple of months, but a trainer who understands the aging body, the
Right.
aging woman's body, because going to a trainer who's 25 is not going to help you.
Yep. You're right. Thank you for
They don't
saying that.
understand. So you want to have someone. So my best friend from college is a personal trainer. She struggled with weight for many, many years. But when she started working with an appropriate trainer, my goodness, her whole body changed.
Mhm.
And so that's why she works with women, mostly midlife and beyond,
Mhm.
because she knows the difference. And I appreciate that because I've worked out. I've been an athlete my whole life,
Mhm.
but there were a few years in there where I really wasn't doing much. I'd do a little bit here and a little bit there, but I'd really fallen off the track. And when I started to realize I needed to get back to my strength training, my strength, I was shocked at how quickly, over
Muscle
maybe a
memory.
course of a year, my muscle and strength had declined.
Well,
And
but you have
so,
muscle memory because it's been there. It's easier, a little bit easier for you than say the person who's never worked out.
exactly,
Right.
exactly. So I do think that that was an important piece to mention is, find that trainer who is appropriate for you.
And tagging onto that, it's about voicing what you want and what you need. And I think as older women, it's easier. And if it's not, make it easier, because this is the time you need to really speak what you need. I don't need a 25-year-old young guy to teach me, lifting weights and then, put me down because I can't lift 30 pounds, that kind of thing. And to ask for the appropriate thing and be okay. It's like embracing your age. It's okay. I'm over 50 and I can't be expected to do that. So I need to find people that can address what I need instead of falling for something second best because you're told you should. And that's part of the menopausal mental woman, is to empower them to ask and to say, this is what I need, or this is what I'm looking for, or this is what's happening to me, and I need you to address this. If you're not the right person, then refer me to somebody who is.
Absolutely. And I would say that with your trainer and also your doctor.
Doctor, yeah.
So interesting thing. So you and I are around the same age. So Gen Xers. So the generation above us, they were, those women, love them to death. My mother's a boomer. My husband actually is a boomer, like late boomer. But what they were told, you went to the doctor told you XYZ, they gave you a prescription and you said, okay, thank you very much. And you did what the doctor said. But then you went home and you didn't get any better. But they kept taking the medications that were prescribed, and then they'd go back, and so the doctor would ask, is this any better? No, not really. Well, let's just change the medication. And they were okay with that because they didn't understand that they could ask the question, that they could really say, this is what I need, and really be their own advocates. I think we've gotten much better at that, becoming our own advocates. We always advocate for our kids, right?
Right. Or our
Why wouldn't
parents or
we?
anybody else but
Right.
us, right?
Exactly. We need to advocate for ourselves. And again, that goes back to that personal accountability piece, because, we come into this world alone, basically, and we're going to go out alone. It's us. It's, our life. Yes, we have wonderful people around us,
Mhm.
right? But they don't feel what we feel.
Right. And we are the creators of our own life. At the end of the day, how we respond to the things that happen will make or break us. And we've got the power to respond differently, which is
And if we prepare for them, we can respond as opposed to react. So many women, they're reactionary when it comes to their health.
Mhm.
Oh, shoot, what do you mean I'm pre-diabetic? I better do something about it.
Mhm.
Well, now you have to lose 75 pounds as opposed to 5 or 10. That's hard.
Yeah.
So
Small chunks. Well, this is great. You've given us a lot to think about, especially physically, mentally, and emotionally. Denise, thank you so much for being with us today. Healthy living, happy life. And in that midlife area, it's not a crisis. It's actually a blessing. And we appreciate people like you, Denise, in the world to inform us, because information is definitely what we need as women this age. All right, Denise, give us one little nugget, one little inspirational nugget of wisdom before we go.
Okay, so healthy living, happy life. When you are focused on your physical, mental, and emotional health, that happiness that you think has been eluding you will come so easy.
I love that. All right. Thank you so much, Denise.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you to Denise Stegall, the author of Healthy Living, Happy Life. And thank you. Thank you, my listeners, for listening. I am your host, Angel Howard, and I would love to get to know you better. Send me an email at angel@angelhoward.co. or book me for a speaking engagement, or bring me to your retreat. Go to my website, angelhoward.co, or dive deeper into your own journey of self-discovery and buy my book, Issues in Your Tissues, on Amazon. Until next time, have a great day.